Hello and welcome to the second Kubifaktorium modding tutorial, where I give you some more advanced insights which you can use to change and expand the game. So in the first tutorial, which you can find on YouTube in case you haven't watched it yet, there was some information on setting up the tools and the general structure of how a mod works. Some information on how to make voxel files, on how to modify existing objects and data, on testing it all, and how to upload things to the Steam workshop. So it's about, I think it was about 15 minutes long, or a bit longer, but either way, if you're interested in those topics, please watch this tutorial before continuing with this one. What I'm going to talk about in this tutorial are some general tips on making the voxel models, including shadow meshes, model variations, as well as making dioramas and biomes and terrain later on. So, let's begin with shadow meshes, shall we? What is a shadow mesh? So, before I answer this, please have a good look at this rock over here and see if you notice anything unusual. Well, let's have a look at the rock as a game object, and what I can tell you a little secret is that this rock, which you can see over here, is not actually creating the shadow over here. So let me show you by moving it a bit. Oops. Let's move it over here. And let me move the shadow alongside. So this is the rock itself, which does not cast any shadow, and this is the object that does cast the shadow. And the thing here is, the shadow object is a way simpler shape. It is just this simple cube. It does not have all these greaves, all these details which the rock has. Instead, it is just a simple cube. And intuitively you might think, well, what is the difference? Like, can this really be so expensive, and why am I doing this? What I found is it has a very big impact on performance, because if you look even at a simple object like this tree, for example, I can show you that one of these trees has over 1,300 vertices and 600 triangles. And if you have a lot of them on screen, it does have a big impact on performance. So what I recommend is, if you have an object which has a lot of detail, which is great, do provide a shadow mesh, which is a simplified form of the same object and which can be used to render the shadows. The technical reason why this makes such a big difference is that every object is rendered multiple times, and especially if you have multiple light sources, the objects get rendered for each light source. And having these simplified models helps a lot, especially on weaker hardware. This is relevant for objects where you have many of. It is also relevant for items which you can stack a lot. So a good example for this are the track parts, which can be stacked like 8 on a single tile, and having a lot of them again can be a problem hardware wise. So let me show you how it works. Okay, so let's have a look at the rock. If you don't know, you will find the game files in your Steam apps folder under Common, Kubifaktorium, Data, Streaming Assets, and then under Object Type. So if we look for the rock, which should be in Scenery Grassland, No. Resources. No. Minimables. Yeah, minimables. There it is. If we open this rock folder, you can see that we have this standard voxel file and the voxel file which has an S at the end of the name. And as you might have guessed, this is the shadow model. So opening the normal file without the S is the standard voxel model, and opening the other one, you can see that this is just a simple cube which is used for the shadows. The reason why this works relatively well is it's very hard to notice the difference, I think, and it has a very big performance impact. So yeah, strongly recommend using shadow models. So basically you just make a copy of your normal model. I mean, I can show you how I would do it in this case. So I just take this normal rock and, just delete all the extra detail and just leave the war cube at the end. I can show you a few more just to get a feel for it. So if you look at the oak tree looks like this. Like this, right? And the shadow model looks like this. Yeah. Okay. So the next topic is model variations. As you might have noticed, obviously I've noticed that different colonists have different models. So for example, there are different variations of female colonists and different variations of male colonists. And technically they are all the same type, but they use a different model file. And it's quite easy to set up. So let me just show you. When we look at the female settler model, or female settler model, you can see that we have 12 different voxel files. And the way we make the game access these is when we open the file. You can see that under model info, we can specify model variations. So in this case, we have 12 different colonists, or 12 different variations of this model file, and the game will read all of them. Note that if you have only one model variation, you do not call it settler female 1, you just call it settler female. But as soon as you have more than one, you have to number all of them. So this is model variations. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to make dioramas. In case you're not sure what I mean, dioramas are these little images or little basic scenes you can see in the main menu. So you can toggle these by pressing F7. It will give you a new random diorama. So in case for testing, if you want to see how yours looks, you can use that. But I'm going to show you how to make one. So let's just make a map. So basically, you look for a place that you like, that you want to have in your diorama. You can also modify it a bit. So I don't know, let's place a little decorative shrine over here. And let's make a bush over here, something like that. And let's say we want to have this little scene here as a diorama. Then what you do is you select the stockpile tool. You hold the control key, and you drag an area out that is 8 by 8 tiles. So if you do something else like this, you will get an error message. Diorama needs to be of size 8 times 8. You make one with the correct size, maybe like this. Then it will tell us that the diorama was saved to this specific folder. So the game has created this diorama2.xml, which you can edit if you like, but I don't really recommend it. Now we go to our streaming assets mods folder. We copy over the extra diorama example, copy it over to my mods in our save game folder. We open these folders, we remove the old diorama1.xml, and we copy the file we just created over here and we rename it diorama1.xml. So of course you also want to, add your description over here, and yeah, that is it. You can also have multiple dioramas in the same mod, and let's test to see if it works. Okay, so the game loaded up. First of all, let's go to user mods and see if our mod appeared. And it seems like that, and notice that here under contains it says diorama 1, which is the one we created. Since it's random, we don't see it immediately, so we have to shuffle a few times. A few more times. And I think this is it. Right, we had these 3 mountain tiles, we have our lamp here in the middle, and so on. Please note that most simulation systems do not work in this diorama mode. So you cannot have a moving train or conveyor belts or something like that. So it has to be very, very simple and a scene that is relatively static, like this one. Okay, so this should cover dioramas. Let's move on to terrain modding. Creating a new terrain is a bit of work, but I think the payoff is pretty huge because it, adds a really different feel to the game. I'm not going to give an example at this point, but I'm going to explain to you how everything works. So first of all, let's get to some definitions. So a biome, as I specified, is basically a collection of different ground types. So for example, we have the grassland terrain, which consists of this coast tile type of this grassland and these mountains over here. The desert one consists of these different types of sand as well as the desert mountain. Within a biome there can be a sub-biome. So a sub-biome here would be this swamp area, and a sub-biome here would be this oasis thing. So these are biomes and sub-biomes. What you have between the two are overhangs, which are, let me show you. For example, this one. Oops. Yeah. These ones. Okay. So if I turn them off, you can see that this is just the very bare bones tile model, which looks very ugly. So instead of having it like this, we have this little extra models which are in between the swamp tile in this case and the grassland tile. Or over here we have the let's see which one it is. Probably one of these. Yeah. So you can also have an overhang between different biomes. So for example, between this desert sand biome and the grassland biome. So these overhangs, they do not have any real function in the game. It's just purely visual, but obviously it looks very nice to have them. Okay, so how do you make one of these? So if you go back to our streaming assets folder, go to the object type and go to terrain grassland, for example, this should give you a good idea in general what you need to do. So first of all, actually let me check, where is this actually? 24 terrain grassland. Okay, sorry, you do not just need this, you also need a map modifier. Yeah, over here. Map modifier, terrain grassland. So you need both of these. You need a modifier and you need these different models. And we will go through each of these in turn. So let's begin with the modifier. The modifier is a simple XML file. And when we open it, you can see that there are several different world blocks over here. So the first one is the modifier info, which is basically just information for the game, what to do with this file. And you have localization, which says how the tier is to be, how the terrain is to be named. In this case, tier 1 grassland. We have shader info, which we'll go into in a bit. And we have terrain info, which is the most important one. So let's start here. In terrain info, we have this floor by height. And floor by height is where we assign all the different tile types which are included in this terrain. So we can see here that the grassland consists of ocean, water, sand, grass and earth 2 times. So there's a number, it's a total of 6 different tiles which we specify here. And these correspond to these 6 different, 4 of these plus 2 other tile types. So water and ocean are actually shared between biomes, so they are in a different folder. Okay, next, what else do we have? We have terrain frequencies. So these are relative frequencies which specify how much, how big the proportion of the tiles is in relation to each other. So in this case, it means about 40% are ocean, about 20% are water, 15% are coastline, 40% are grassland, and so on. So these do not add up to 100%, but the game will normalize it to be 100%. Then we have spawn density. Spawn density means how many objects will spawn on the map. So this is 4.7%. It means approximately that for each tile there is a 4.7% chance that something will spawn there. And something can also be a group of things, like for example a group of trees or a group of rocks and so on. If you make this number lower, it will mean that the map is, sparser, there is less happening, less objects, and so on. Position in world means if you have the campaign mode, the world map, where will these biomes be found? So currently in the bottom left of the map there will be the grassland, in the middle the desert, and in the top right the dark biome. And by changing this you can specify where it will appear on the world map. This might change how this works, but for now this is it. Okay, and finally this is just the tier number. You can basically choose one which fits the approximate technology level you want to have there. Okay, so let's have a look at the different floor tiles. Okay, Yeah, the models are usually quite simple. So this is the earth floor. Let's do the sand one. Like this. Yeah, it's not the hardest thing to model, obviously. And yeah, this part is relatively easy to do. Next up, we have the different shader options. So here in this shader info block in the terrain grassland.xml, you will find a number of general things like the rain time between different rain showers, how long a rain shower is, how long it takes to transition into the rain state, and so on. And you have a few parameters which are specific to the post-processing shaders. And you can experiment a bit with it. So ambient occlusion is roughly about how stark certain ambient shadows are. So for example, in the desert, they are not so strong like as in the grassland. And you also have bloom, which specifies how at which brightness point there will be a bloom effect applied to the image. So in the desert biome, this is used a bit to create sort of an ambient glow effect around the desert, which looks quite nice. Obviously don't overdo it, and you know, just experiment a bit which numbers work good for your specific terrain. There's also fog, which you can specify. Currently there are two presets, one for the night fog in the grassland biome and the sandstorm in the desert biome, but I will add some more customization options in the future. And finally, you can specify the environment particle colors. So this is an RGB value, and what this is are these little particles which float along. So as you can see here, for the desert biome, these are in green, and yeah, they just give a bit of atmosphere to the game, I think. So obviously they are just visual eye candy and they don't do anything, but yeah, you can specify their color over here. So next up, let's talk about sub-biomes. So in the desert biome, we have, in the grassland biome, we have this swamp sub-biome and the light grass sub-biome, which is over here and where the wheat grows. And yeah, they are specified over here in the terrain grassland.xml. The first one is the swamp and the second one is the light grass. So the parameters for sub-biome info are minimum and maximum frequency. So how often can this sub-biome spawn? We have minimum spawns, so we are guaranteed to have at least one swamp biome, and where it can spawn. So in this case, the swamp can only spawn on the grass floor, which is the green one. Next, we specify the terrain to spawn, and this is specified from inside to outside. So what I mean is, we have for the swamp we have 20 tiles of swamp water and we have 40 tiles of swamp. And if we look at it, here we should see that we have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we have probably 20 tiles of swamp water surrounded by 40 tiles of swamp. Yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward. You can also only have one. So in the light grass we only have one tile. Yeah, we only have 20 times floor light grass. And yeah, then we have objects to spawn. and these will spawn on random tiles around the tiles which are spawned via this. So in this case, every swamp comes with 10 branches, 20 ferns, a loot box, and 2 fireflies. Let's have a look. Yeah, here's our loot box. Here are our branches. These should be 20 ferns. And yeah, I don't see the firefly, but it should be somewhere, I guess. This brings us to the last topic for this tutorial, which is the overhangs. And the example we're going to do is grass overhangs. So I'm toggling them right now so you can see what we're talking about. So these little voxel things. And if we look at the terrain grassland folder, we see this grass overhang folder. And when we open the model, it looks like this. So one thing to keep in mind is that there could be cases where the grass is not next to a coast tile, but where it is next to water. And therefore it needs to extend down a bit more than you would usually want it to. So now it can be next to water and it will still work. Let's see if we can see an example over here. No, I think on this terrain it did not happen, but it could happen. So it is important that the model extends down a bit. Okay, so let's look at the corresponding XML file. So we have the grass overhang.xml, and when we open it, see it's a relatively short file. We have base info, where we should set ignore tile height to 1, because otherwise it would be placed on top of the tile, which is not what we want. This should be left as it is, maybe as well, which brings us to the actual overhang tag over here, and arguably the least intuitive way of writing this ever. So let me explain. What we specify here is where these overhangs should be placed. And these are the rules which specify where they are placed. So we have 3 different rules. And yeah, it's a bit strange, I have to admit. So basically, on the right side of this equation, we have the floor type. Wait a second. We have the floor tile on the inside. So in this case, the grassland. And on the left side, we have the tile type of the tile where it should be placed. And you can see it is a number over here. It can be the specific name of the tile, or it could be the elevation level. Elevation level is 0 for ocean. It is 1 for this light water. 2 for the sand, 3 for the main height, and so on. So 5 and 6 are for the mountains. And in this case, what we specify is the overhang should be placed outside of a grass tile, and it shall go to yeah, basically everything which is sand, water, or ocean. So this is what is specified over here. Yeah, it's a bit strange, I have to admit. Let's have a look at another example. Let's look at the swamp overhang, maybe. Yeah, this is a bit more complicated, unfortunately. I have tried to simplify it a bit, but still we have to keep in mind that there are several different terrain combinations which can happen, and unfortunately it's a bit of trial and error until you get this right. So let's have a look at this one. This is the swamp overhang. So this one over here. And note that it extends from the swamp to the grassland, but also to the swamp water over here. So we have to specify the overhang here for the outside and for the inside. And yeah, that is the reason why it is a bit more complicated. So this is for the outside, so from all elevation levels up to 3 towards the swamp, and also towards the swamp water. So it can happen that there is a swamp water tile which is not surrounded by a swamp, and in that case we also want this overhang. And from the swamp water towards the other side. Yeah, it's unfortunately it's not the most intuitive thing ever, but yeah, what I would recommend is when you do a terrain, start with an existing terrain, rename it, reskin it, and so on, and go from there. So yeah, I'm aware this was a ton of information and probably a bit overwhelming. But I think it's a lot of valuable information, and if you do want to make a terrain, you can just, pause at the video, rewatch it, and of course, always if you have questions, go to the Discord, and I will usually be around every other day, and yeah, help you out if you have problems, and willing to do all sorts of things to help you get it to work. Yeah, so this pretty much wraps up this modding tutorial number 2 video. I hope you learned something or maybe got inspired to make another mod. Yeah, thank you very much for watching, and see you on Discord or next time. Bye bye.